Last week we tested the Land Rover Defender, a rare breed in 2025 because it has a supercharged V8. Today we have a different type of rare breed, at least here in North America. This is a hatchback with a manual transmission. Welcome back to PR and Test Drive. Let's take a look at this 2025 Mazda 3 Sport GT. So for 2025, the Mazda 3 Sport remains largely carryover, but Mazda did reshuffle a lot of the features and made them available at lower trims. For instance, the GS model now gets wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, whereas the GX base trim now gets the driving assistance suite, which means that it has lane centering and adaptive cruise control, things like that. This is fantastic news because the price increase for most of the trims year over year has only been about $700 to $800 Canadian, except for this GT manual trim. For some reason, this GT manual trim costs $2,000 more than before, bringing the as-tested price to about 37,000 Canadian dollars. So this current generation Mazda 3 has been around since 2019, but despite being 7 years old, I still think it looks pretty modern. You get a long hood up front, steering responsive headlights, gloss black grille, radar in the center, some parking sensors, and on the side you get a set of 215 wide 18-inch dark gray wheels, McPherson struts in the front, and torsion beam suspension setup in the rear. You also get keyless entry for this trim and illuminated door sills for the front door. So if you bring the car up close, I will admit that certain angles of this Mazda 3 Sport does look a little bit weird, like the quarter panel, the hatch, maybe it's a little too round. I just think it's missing a little flair, which we used to be able to fix with the appearance package, which includes a spoiler, lower bumper that's more aggressive, side skirts, and a front splitter, but now it's no longer available here in Canada. I think that package is a must-have. Those little accessory bits, I think, makes this car look much better. Anyway, trunk space. So you don't get a power liftgate, but you do get a lock button here. You can press the lock and then pull down the trunk to lock the car when you close it. As expected, not a huge amount of space back here, but given it's a small hatchback, it's not too bad. You get a little bit more space underneath the trunk floor and also a spare tire. And you can also fold down the rear seats 60-40 split. So overall, it's still pretty practical for such a small car. Under the hood, you get the option between a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated inline-4 or a 2.5 liter turbocharged inline-4. The base NA engine produces 191 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque, whereas the turbocharged engine can produce up to 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque if you use premium gas. The base engine can be paired with a 6-speed manual transmission or a 6-speed automatic transmission, whereas the turbocharged engine can only be fitted with the 6-speed auto. Front-wheel drive comes standard, but all-wheel drive is available on most trims except the base trim and this manual version. The rear seats unfortunately do feel a little bit claustrophobic. I think the low roof line, the small window, the big quarter panel, these are the main culprit. But with that said, at 5'9", I do still have enough space behind myself, both legroom and headroom, and the leather feels nice. The seats are fairly comfortable. I would say if you frequently have to carry adult passengers in the back, maybe look for something a little bit bigger. But if you only occasionally have to carry passengers in the back, it will be no problem and it will suffice more than enough. Now, once again, I have to reiterate that this is the 7th model year for this generation. And even then, I still don't think the interior looks dated. The steering wheel, the dash, both look very modern. You have a 10.25-inch infotainment screen that supports wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. The interior is full of leather. You have it on the armrest, you have it on the dash, you have it even on the door panel. So in my opinion, it really feels like Mazda has the genuine intention to make this car feel premium, and I really appreciate that. This GT trim also gets heated steering wheel, heated front seats, driver memory seat, head-up display, wireless charger, and a Bose sound system. In addition to that, you also have physical controls for all your functions, including a rotary dial for your infotainment system. The screen up there is technically touch capable, but you can only use the touch functions when you're in Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. The rest of the software, the built-in software, is controlled using the rotary dial, and it's made for the rotary dial. To be honest with you, it doesn't really bother me because the screen is quite far away anyway, and despite the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto experience not being great without touching, I still prefer using the rotary dial because I find it way less distracting while I'm driving, just rotating the knob instead of reaching all the way over there to touch the screen. Well, it seems like every year that Mazda continues to make this Mazda 3 hatch, it becomes more and more desirable. Compared to last year, it now has even less competitors. The Civic hatch no longer gets a manual. The Golf GTI and Golf R also no longer gets manual. So it seems like the only hatchback manual vehicle you can get here in North America is the Integra, which, if you want to get the manual version, it starts at over $10,000 more than this one. So, does that make this a bargain? Let me know down in the comments below. I know that the exterior may not suggest that this Mazda 3 is a very sporty car, but on the road, the handling dynamics and chassis tuning is actually done very well. It doesn't have a limited slip differential, and I would really prefer the steering rack to be a little bit quicker, but it is still a very fun car to drive without feeling overly stiff or overly aggressive. Power-wise, the Civic Si and the Integra feels quicker because of the low-end torque from the turbocharged engine, whereas this one, being a naturally aspirated engine, it kind of needs to be revved out. But once you do that, it's really not bad. And precisely because this is a naturally aspirated engine, the throttle response is actually really good and there's no rev hang. So rev matching is really quite easy. The gearbox feels nice overall, the throws are short enough and the gates are well defined, but I would like it to have a little bit more weight, a little bit more resistance on the gear shifter. No auto rev matching on this Mazda 3, but there is hill start hold, and the pedal placement is pretty evenly spread out, so even if you want to do heel toe down shifting, it's no problem. So I would think that it's pretty easy for beginners if you're learning how to drive manual in a Mazda 3. When it comes to safety features, I applaud Mazda for making more of them standard. So now even on the base trim, you get emergency braking, lane departure warning, lane centering, adaptive cruise control, and a few other features, in addition to the blind spot warning and the rear cross traffic alert that were already standard. This GT trim also gets 360 camera and parking sensors, which is great. As far as fuel economy goes, the city numbers are pretty close to the rated efficiency at about 8 liters per 100 kilometers, 9 liters per 100 kilometers, depending on how you drive, of course. But on the highway, I've actually been able to manage 5.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which is very impressive and significantly better than the officially rated numbers. Overall, the Mazda 3 Sport GT with the manual gearbox, I think, has somewhat become the enthusiast option. I do really wish that Mazda would put the appearance package on here and perhaps some black rims on this trim just to make it look cooler, look more sporty, more catered to the enthusiast buyers. But nonetheless, it's still a fun car to drive, engaging car to drive without being too sporty or too pricey. Anyway, what do you think about this Mazda 3 Sport? Would you like Mazda to release a special edition, perhaps with the turbo engine and the manual transmission, or maybe even a limited slip differential? I think that would be cool. I would definitely say yes to that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Not bad.